What do you think of when you think 17th century Europe? Empires? The Spanish Inquisition? New philosophies? A massive war that killed 8 million people, including one-third of the German population? The 30 Years' War was a massive European conflict, spanning the continent and lasting, you guessed it, 30 years. What started as a local religious conflict spiraled into a truly continental war in which all the powers of Europe were dragged into in some form or another. Let's get into it. The previous century had been one of religious reformation and counter-reformation, with countless religious wars, many fought within the Holy Roman Empire. Things cooled down after the Peace of Augsburg in 1555, which decreed that the ruler of a realm had the authority to choose its religion, be it Protestantism or Catholicism. In the year 1617, Ferdinand II was crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Ferdinand was a staunch Catholic and cracked down hard on Protestants. This was much to the displeasure of Bohemia, a part of the empire that had a long history of disliking the church. Ferdinand sent officials to close the Protestant churches in the city of Prague in the modern-day Czech Republic. The people of Prague were none too happy about this, and they had the officials thrown out of a third-story window. This is known as the Defenestration of Prague. This event kicked off a Bohemian revolt and was the first phase of the 30 Years' War. The Bohemian phase started out with both sides seeking allies in the upcoming conflict. Allies of Bohemia included the Palatinate, a principality within the Holy Roman Empire. In 1620, Emperor Ferdinand marched on Prague and crushed the rebels at the Battle of White Mountain. The Bohemian king fled and the rebel leaders were executed. Resistance continued in the Palatinate until its defeat in 1625. Thus ended the Bohemian phase, but the wider war was far from over. King Christian IV of Denmark saw what was happening in Bohemia and worried about the Protestants living in his German lands. In 1625, he decided to march his army south and fought the Holy Roman Empire in many battles, resulting in defeat after defeat. Denmark had counted on support from allies, but this support was limited. A notable commander in this phase was Albert von Wallenstein, a wealthy Catholic Bohemian. Wallenstein contributed many troops to the conflict, and along with a certain Count of Tilly were instrumental in the imperial victory. Denmark was forced to agree to peace in 1629, knocking it out of the war. The first two phases of the war have been local religious conflicts, but over time it became a political war to curb Habsburg ambition. At this point, the Kingdom of Sweden saw the growing Catholic Habsburg threat and directly intervened in the war. Let's talk for a moment about Sweden's king, Gustavus Adolphus. Gustavus Adolphus became king at the age of 16 in the middle of a war with Denmark-Norway. His military genius showed in many engagements. One of the best examples was the Siege of Stockholm in 1612, where the Swedish army was badly outnumbered. Gustavus put every man in the city in uniform, so that it appeared the Swedish army was much larger than it actually was. The plan worked, and the Danes decided to leave without a fight. But back to the war. Gustavus, like his father, was heavily invested in protecting Protestants in Germany, and wanted to drive the Habsburgs back. Gustavus and his army landed in Pomerania and marched south. Emperor Ferdinand had dismissed Wallenstein due to a lack of trust, and this weakened the empire's army. Gustavus was a brilliant commander, and defeated the Habsburgs in battle after battle. This was due to his military reforms and tactics, wherein he mastered mass musket fire and mobile artillery. The string of victories continued until the Battle of Lutzen in 1632, when Gustavus was killed while leading a cavalry charge. The battle was won, but Sweden lost its king and most competent commander. In 1632, the Swedish army was defeated at the Battle of... so it's pronounced Nordlingenby. The Swedes were pushed back to Pomerania and left Germany the following year. Sweden was out of action for now, and this would be the end of the Swedish phase. France had been indirectly involved in the war for many years. They had provided much of Sweden's funds during the Swedish phase. France was a Catholic kingdom, so why did it side with the Protestants? France was a longtime rival of the House of Habsburg and the Holy Roman Empire. France was surrounded by Habsburg neighbors and wanted to curb their power. Behind this political maneuvering was a man called Cardinal Richelieu. Richelieu was a brilliant statesman and put religion behind politics. France declared war on Spain in 1635 and the Holy Roman Empire in 1636. This was the climax of the 30 Years' War and saw devastation across Europe. This phase went poorly for the French at first, with Habsburg forces invading from the Spanish Netherlands and threatening Paris in 1636. Fighting went on with no side holding the upper hand for another 4 years. In 1640, France started getting the better of Spain after the capture of Arras. The same year, Sweden re-entered the war. This became a turning point. The war continued and saw one Habsburg defeat after another. By 1646, everyone wanted peace, and it took another 2 years for an agreement to be reached. In 1648, the Peace of Münster and the Peace of Osnabrück were signed, part of the wider Peace of Westphalia. This would end the 30 years of conflict. The 30 years of fighting had killed what historians estimate to be around 8 million people. 1/3 of the German population had been killed. The Peace of Westphalia had territorial changes and religious reform, but the results of the war are much larger than that. The 30 Years' War was the last major religious war in Europe and saw the beginning of modern diplomacy, as a duke held no more diplomatic authority than an emperor or cardinal. Here's how a pre-Enlightenment diplomatic encounter went.
I demand you hand over your castle in Nassau.
Why? Who gave you the right to make demands?
My man Jesus. He said so. Do you know Jesus?
Enough of this. On guard.
The loss of life within Germany helped pave the way for German unification. The war was used as an example of what could happen to the German people if they were divided and weak. The Holy Roman Empire would cease to be a serious power in Europe and went into a steep decline. The 30 Years' War was a triumph for some and a tragedy for most. This is Nate for Dual History. Thanks for watching.
Добро пожаловать в Сан-Андреас, я с Гроу-стрит, Си-Джей, район злобных бандитов и равнодушных людей. Тут в Лос-Сантос нигеры воюют без сна со всеми, кто лезет на рожон, и даже полиция в теме. 4 парня в зеленых прикиды садятся в машину и палят нехило, с окнами с банданами на лицах, как настоящие G. Йоу, быть в форме мужик, иди в спортзал и делай...